Welcome to In-Laws and Crime. I'm Ashley.
I am Megan. This is In-Laws and Crime.
Welcome back.
I am scared for today.
Yeah, we don't have any files because we just recorded. So we don't have any files. But today's my case. And I'm just going to trigger warn you all from the get-go. This has to do with children. And I read a book titled A Real Life Boogeyman by Steve Jackson. And it was a really, really hard read. There were multiple times where I had to put the book down and walk away. And yes, and it was really hard. And I really, really, really struggled about even doing this one because of how awful this is.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. I want you to know what kind of monster this person is.
Yeah. I feel like it's still important to know these cases.
And let's bring light back to the victims and just let's create awareness. Because as your case that we just did with Ashley Estelle, it's not safe out there.
No,
they thought they were safe at a family soccer field with all these other families, and then lurking somewhere was a predator.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, like, I think I've said this on the pod before, but Jacob and I live close to a park, and I'm always on the lookout for a weirdo.
Yeah.
I am. I can see the park from my front lawn, my front window, and I'm constantly. So if there's like a weird car that somebody's just parked there, I'm immediately like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Why are you parked there?
What's your license plate number?"
Yeah, exactly. No, I literally have made. I'm like, silver Toyota Corolla. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I have.
Yeah.
Because you just never know.
No. The weirdos are everywhere, and they can look like anybody.
They can be anybody. Just like your case too. The ref was
the freaking soccer referee had child molestation.
Yes,
pending charges. Yeah, freaking terrifying.
Okay. So that's my trigger warning. And I'll tell you, I pulled a lot of things out to try to keep it clean. But I also left some things in, again, just to show what kind of monster we're looking at.
And this is also going to be a...
yeah, I'm sorry. It's going to be a
two-parter. So buckle up, everybody.
So, yeah, sorry about you, but it's going to be a two-parter.
That's okay.
Okay.
We forgive you.
All right. Are we ready? Okay. It's January 19th, 1985 in Mesquite, Texas. Okay. Michael Meeks, age 7, his sister, Christy Meeks, age 5, and their friend, Tiffany Easter, age 9, were all outside their apartment complex roller skating when the 3 children were approached by a young man. The young man asked if the kids wanted cookies.
Oh, no.
Michael and Tiffany refused the man's offer, but little 5-year-old Christy wanted cookies. Oh, no. Despite the other 2 children urging Christy to come with them, she stayed with the stranger. Michael and Tiffany ran home to Michael's house, where they told Linda Meeks that Christy walked away with a stranger. Linda immediately called police to report her daughter's abduction. On scene, detectives Bruce Bradshaw and Bob Hallman spoke with Michael and Tiffany. Michael was too shaken to speak to the investigators at the time, but Tiffany told them everything that she remembered. She said that it was a young white male. She said he was about as tall as Detective Bradshaw, so about 5'10", and looked to be about his size, so about 160 pounds. With medium-length brown hair and bangs, unshaven, and possibly had a mustache. Yeah. He was wearing a pullover shirt, shorts, and sneakers. When the man asked, she's telling detectives, when the man asked if they wanted cookies, Tiffany felt uneasy and told Michael and Christy to follow her to her house because she had cookies.
Oh.
Which was very quick thinking on her part.
Yeah, it was.
But Christy wouldn't go with them and walked away with the stranger instead.
And how old's Tiffany again?
Tiffany, I think I said, was 9.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's 9.
Good for her.
Christy was 5, and her brother, Michael, was 7. So detectives continued to interview possible witnesses around the complex. The detectives located 2 boys that had been playing outside. And the boys told the detectives that they saw Christy get into the car with a man. One boy said the car was gray, and the other boy thought the car was yellow.
This is what we talked about in last week's episode too, is that eyewitness testimony can be so hard.
And they were young. I can't remember how old they were, but they were like under 10.
Yeah.
So they were little
boys. Yeah.
Also, yeah. So Bradshaw and Holloman are in panic mode. They know that Christy is in real danger, and this was before Amber Alerts and cell phones. So at the time, the best way to get the word out other than news outlets was teletypes to the local police stations to be on the lookout.
Wow, teletype.
Yeah. So at this point, they have teams of officers and volunteers searching everywhere. Local parks, vacant fields, motel parking lots. And Christy was described by Linda as brown-eyed, sandy blonde hair, and most likely wearing a gold necklace with a red heart-shaped stone in the middle. She was wearing a Color Me Rainbow shirt, jeans, and Cabbage Patch Doll sneakers. When I read the sneakers, I died inside.
Cabbage Patch sneakers.
It just, she's a baby.
Yeah.
The big concern, other than her missing, of course, was that if her abductor abandoned her somewhere, a cold front was coming in and temperatures were expected to be in the low 30s. So they were worried about her being exposed to the elements in just a shirt and jeans because it's January.
Mm-hmm.
If Christy missing wasn't bad enough, Linda's ex-husband, Christy and Michael's father, was angry and blamed Linda's carelessness as the reason their daughter was abducted.
Oh, no.
He also made the situation tough on investigators by being hard to deal with. And I mean, like, I can't imagine how I would react in that type of situation. And it's real easy to blame your ex-spouse, like
I'm sure.
But, like, this is not the time.
Yeah. Like, give it some. Yeah. Geez.
Yeah. This is not the time.
Her baby being missing is punishment enough, sir.
Yeah. Don't turn around and blame her.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do all that right now.
Right. So everyone was in the family was asked to submit to a lie detector test. They all did, and everyone passed. Okay. So now it's March 1985, so it's 2.5 months have passed. Still no sign of Christy. A man named Bruce Green was a graduate of the art department of the University of Texas. He reached out to the Mesquite Police Department and offered to do a composite sketch of the suspect. Michael Meeks and Tiffany Easter were brought into the station and sat down with the artist. The kids gave the best detailed description that they could, and the composite sketch was broadcast across news stations and posters were put up all over town. Tips began flooding in at that point. And because there's no way to really kind of source this stuff electronically, the detectives had to come up with their own method to keep up with all these things. So they came up with a list of 3 different priorities. So priority 1 was a tip that was pertinent information with somebody that looked like the composite sketch or knew somebody that looked like the composite sketch and had a history of committing sex crimes. 2 was still pertinent information to the investigation. And then 3 was someone that looked like the sketch, but no further information was provided.
Yeah. Okay.
We're going to jump another month ahead. So now we're in April. So just over 3 months since Christy was abducted, 2 men were out fishing on Lake Texoma, and they spotted something floating in the water, and what they thought was a dead bird. When they got close enough to it, they realized it was not a dead bird, but it was the body of a young child.
Oh my God.
Lake Texoma was about 75 miles away from Mesquite on the border between Texas and Oklahoma. When the body was picked up by the medical examiner's office, they initially believed the body was that of a little boy because it was so badly decomposed.
Oh my gosh.
But after further investigation, a call was made to the Mesquite police to tell them that the body they discovered in Lake Texoma might be their missing girl. So Christy Meeks, Okay, sorry.
Brief pause.
No, sorry, my bad. I glitched.
All of us are probably, the listeners are probably just doing what we were doing too. What
happened? I glitched for a minute. It was noted that she was in a Color Me Rainbow shirt.
She was still in her
blue
clothes.
Jeans and 1 Cabbage Patch sneaker.
Oh my gosh.
Mike Meeks, Christy's father, told investigators how to locate Christy's dental records. Once the investigators had those in hand, it was confirmed the body the fisherman discovered was indeed Christy Meeks.
Oh my gosh.
The family was devastated. And as we talked about in your case, DNA was not a thing at this point.
Yeah.
But investigators know that the perpetrator loves to revisit the scene.
Mm-hmm.
So when they had Christy's funeral and her burial, there was extra police on site to see if anyone or saw someone attending the funeral or burial that matched the description of their suspect.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one fitting the description showed up and the case turned cold. Okay. So now we're going to jump to February 12th of 1986, and we're in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
10-year-old Tiffany Abira was walking to school. She normally walked to school with friends, but on this day, a bird pooped on her.
Oh.
Her farm file for the day.
Yeah.
A bird pooped on her, and she had to return home to change clothes.
Oh.
When she left to walk back to school, a man in a van sat watching her.
Mm.
As she came closer to the parked van, a man jumped out, grabbed Tiffany by her backpack, wrapped his arms around her, and threw her in his van.
Oh, my God. In broad daylight.
In broad daylight, right, because she's walking to school.
Yeah.
The attacker's plan was to take little Tiffany to a secluded wooded area where he would assault her and then suffocate her before tossing her out of his van.
Holy crap.
However, for some reason, the kidnapper had a change of heart.
What?
The man told Tiffany Abira that to call her mom and tell her she had been kidnapped. The kidnapper had a bag phone in his van for work. So Tiffany called her mom as instructed, but before she could say anything, the kidnapper hung up the phone and told Tiffany she better not walk to school alone again. He said that he'd been watching her, and the next time he wasn't going to let her go. He let Tiffany out of the van where she ran home.
Shut the hell up.
Yeah.
He let her go.
He let her go.
What in the hell?
Yeah. So Tiffany ran home to the apartment complex that she lived in, and she ran to her mom, Teresa Abira. Teresa listened to Tiffany's tale about what had just happened. And unfortunately, as some kids do, Tiffany liked to fabricate stories. So Teresa didn't believe her.
Oh, no.
But Tiffany was adamant that this happened. And she's like, I'm not making this up. This actually happened.
Yeah.
So Tiffany and Teresa get in their car and they drive the neighborhood, but never saw the van. So then Teresa takes Tiffany to school, where Tiffany now is telling her principal what happened. And the principal immediately called police to report the attempted kidnapping.
Good for the principal.
Yeah. So police came and questioned Tiffany, but nothing much came of the investigation because no one else had reported seeing the white van.
Oh, no. Gosh darn it. And this is how many years?
One. Yeah. So she was, Christy Meeks was abducted in January of 1985. We're in February of 1986.
Yeah. Damn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
3 days later, on February 15th, 1986, Christy Proctor, a schoolmate and friend of Tiffany Abira, was kidnapped on her way home from school.
Shut up.
Christy Proctor was a few days shy of her 10th birthday. She was dressed in a pink and white sweater, blue jeans, and white sneakers. The only clue left behind was a broken heart-shaped box that was given to Christy by her aunt for Valentine's Day.
Oh, my God.
You had a little girl telling you that there's somebody tried to kidnap her. Where could we not have put extra police presence in the community?
Something. Anything.
Yeah. Laura Proctor, Christy's mother, saw the crushed box on the side of the road and knew immediately that it belonged to her daughter. A witness came forward giving the police the same description that Tiffany had given them just days before, but that she added to the perpetrator that had a large mole above his right eye on his face. At this point, police were putting together that they had someone stalking the area of Adobe Elementary.
Yeah.
You don't say.
You don't say. And another thing I was thinking about too, like when what was the first little girl's? Not Christy, but what was the other one?
No, they were both Christy. We have Christy Meeks was the first one.
Oh, okay.
And then Tiffany Abira was almost kidnapped, and then Christy Proctor has now been kidnapped.
So when Tiffany got kidnapped and went to the school and they told them about it, I'm sure they could have at least warned other parents about it, like in the school, like, hey, we did have a report of a potential kidnapping. And then maybe that would have, like, obviously the parents would be like, okay, well, maybe I need to walk my kid to and from school right now or something, take some extra steps. but I'm sure nothing was even said to them.
Yeah, they didn't want to create panic. They didn't know they were dealing with an actual kidnapper. And and maybe they didn't feel that, again, Tiffany's story held much
truthful.
weight, right?
Yeah.
Because, she was known to fabricate stories.
That's so sad.
So be honest, children.
Yes.
Be honest.
The boy who cried wolf. I tell my daughter that one all the time.
Okay. Now it's November 3rd, 1987. So we're not a full year, but we're in November 1987.
Yeah.
Actually, we're over a year, excuse me.
Okay.
In Garland, Texas. A suspect is on the hunt again, circling around an elementary school in search of his next victim.
Ew.
Suddenly he sees 2 young girls picking wildflowers in a field across from an apartment complex down from the elementary school.
Oh my gosh.
He pulled over in his gray sedan and started walking toward the 2 girls. He yelled out to them that he had candy. And Julia Diaz, who was 6, looked down at her little friend, Roxanne Reyes, and said, "He's lying."
Good for her. Oh my gosh, that gave me chills.
As he approached the girls, he lunged at Julia. Julia screamed and took off running. This monster takes off running after her. And Julia quickly squeezes between a narrow gap between 2 apartment buildings that was narrow enough for her, but too narrow for him.
Shut up.
So he ran around the building, and when he came around the corner, he nearly ran into another tenant at the apartment complex. The 2 made eye contact, and that's when he turned around and went back to his car. Julia continued to run until she found someone to help her. And by the time she reached Sergio and Tammy Reyes, Roxanne's parents, it was going to be too late. Because what they didn't know at the time was when this monster returned to his vehicle, Roxanne was still standing there.
Oh my God.
So he took the opportunity to abduct her. He punched her in the stomach to knock all the air out of her so she could not scream. He threw her in his car and then drove away. Roxanne was 3.
She was 3?
Yeah. And here's what's even worse is Roxanne's parents actually worked for the apartment complex. Tammy was inside an apartment making sure it was ready for the next tenant, and Sergio was cutting carpet. Tammy and Sergio both believed Roxanne was with the other, so they had no idea Roxanne had even walked away with Julia to go pick wildflowers.
Oh my God. What is happening?
I wish I could tell you that was the worst part. Okay. Police and detectives arrived on scene and teams were put together to search the area, but they found nothing. A sketch artist came in and Julia gave the best description of the man that she could. She described him as a white male with a mustache, with long hair and bangs swept to the side, and a large mole above his right eye. And what comes next is about to really be upsetting.
Oh, no.
The FBI bugged Tammy's phone so they could listen in case the kidnapper called in. She received a call from the kidnapper demanding $10,000 for the safe return of her daughter, or they would cut off Roxanne's ear and mail it to her. But instructions never came of how to get them the money. The next day, another call came in demanding a ransom for Roxanne. And when Tammy pushed and said, "How do I know you have my daughter?" he said, "I'll just mail you one of her fingers." To which sent her into hysterics.
Yeah. And we're back. We're so sorry.
Sorry. I don't know why. I haven't had an internet issue until we tried to record.
We think it was the Lord trying to give us a breather. Yeah.
It was a little break.
Yeah.
So I was at where they said they would mail and one of Roxanne's fingers to prove that.
Horrifying.
Yeah. So the meeting was arranged at the airport where police shut down the terminal to the public as the caller demanded, and the police were stationed everywhere inside the airport. But
I was about to say, yeah,
no
at an airport, really?
No one showed up.
Yeah.
So this is just 2 prank calls.
Yeah.
And we know this from other cases, like the missing trio out of the Dallas area, the prank calls that flooded into those areas, pretending to be the missing girls.
Yeah. And it was a younger girl doing that, wasn't it?
Yes. She was like 14.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you a little reminder. And I do this a couple of times because we deal with a lot of dates. And this case goes on for a really long time. So we had Christy Meeks. It was 5, abducted in January 1985 out of Mesquite. Christy Proctor, 9, abducted in February 1986 in Dallas. And now we have Roxanne Reyes, 3, abducted in November 1987 from Garland. Okay. So we're
3. I can't
we're
get
working
over.
around the Dallas area.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I'm going to switch gears for a second. And I'm going to talk about, yes, I'll give us a little breather for a second.
I'm glad you did that.
Yes. And we're going to talk about a man named Gary Sweet.
Okay.
So it's June 1997. Our 3 abducted girls' cases remain unsolved. Okay. Gary has been with Garland PD since 1983. And one day during his lunch hour, Gary went into the station's murder closet, which was a small, sad room filled with solved and unsolved cases. And he was initially looking at a case where 3 young girls had been stuffed into a freezer.
Oh, my.
It was ruled as an accident at the time because investigators believed the girls crawled in there themselves and then couldn't get out.
Huh.
So Gary, looking at the pictures, noted that the girls were packed in like sardines and that there was no way they crawled in there on their own.
Yeah.
He felt like this was just lazy police work.
Yeah. Sounds kind of like it.
Yeah. So as he's going through the box, another box catches his eye. He sees the name Roxanne Reyes, and he remembers Roxanne's case as he was working patrol in the evening in the area she went missing. So he had been briefed on her case at the time in the event that he came across her or her abductor. Gary pulled the box down and started going through it. And at the time, Gary had 2 little girls of his own. So this case really hit hard for him. As he's digging through the box, he remembered the other 2 girls, Christy Meeks and Christy Proctor. And Gary started to wonder if the 3 abductions were connected.
Yeah.
As he continued through the box, he was upset by the fact that the box was so unorganized and just a mess of papers, pictures, notepads, sticky notes, like notes that weren't even legible anymore. Like he was like, why? How can we treat a case like this? So, but he did see one like folder in the file box that caught his eye, and it was a folder that contained a list of suspects. So he pulls it out and he's going through it, and one name stuck out to him, and it was David Elliott Penton. So in April 1991, David had been convicted of a murder of a 9-year-old girl named Nedra Ross in Columbus, Ohio. Nedra disappeared in March of 1988, 5 months after Roxanne Reyes' disappearance. Nedra's remains were discovered 6 months later in a heavily wooded creek bed. David, then 32, was a fugitive from Texas. In 1985, he had been convicted of involuntary manslaughter after shaking his infant son to death.
Shut.
He had been released on bond pending appeal and fled the state.
What are we doing?
The reason David Penton caught Gary's eye was that Tammy Reyes, Roxanne's mom, was from Ohio and from an area not far from Columbus, Ohio, and that's where David was from. And Tammy's dad, Paul, or Roxanne's grandfather, saw the article in the newspaper in Ohio and mailed it to detectives in case there was a connection to Roxanne's case.
Wow.
Yes. So remember that her grandfather sent this article by chance to Garland PD to see if perhaps
maybe he was connected.
It was the same.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a stretch, right?
Yeah.
So many states away.
Yeah.
But I mean,
that's insane.
That's wild. So Gary returned the box to the shelf as his lunch break was nearing its end. And unfortunately, it would be another 2 years would go by before Gary had the opportunity to look at Roxanne's case again.
Dang.
In the summer of 1988, Gary had made it a habit of going to lunch at 11. So by noon, he would be one of the only people at the station. He had heard the phone ring and the receptionist answer. How calls worked in the station was the phone rang alphabetically, and Gary Sweet was toward the end of the bottom or the list.
Mm-hmm.
He listened as the receptionist rang each desk until she finally reached Gary.
Mm-hmm.
Gary answered, and the woman stated her name was Tammy Lopez and that she was calling in regards to the murder of her daughter, Roxanne Reyes. It took Gary a minute to connect the dots because at the time, Tammy's last name was Reyes. Either way, Tammy called because she heard that there had been some new information about her daughter's case. And Gary told her he wasn't aware of any break in the case, but there were 6 other detectives in the station and he would find out and get back to her.
Mm-hmm.
Gary talked with everyone at the station, but no one knew what Tammy was talking about. So Gary made the dreadful call back to Tammy to tell her there was nothing new to report. And as they hung up, Gary said he would never forget the sound of Tammy's voice. It was nothing but sadness and desperation.
Oh, gosh.
Another 2 years would go by.
Oh, my heavens, people.
Before fate crossed Gary's desk again. It was now June 27th, the year 2000.
Wow.
Yep. It's lunchtime again, and the phone rings at the station. And again, Gary watches as the receptionist bounces from desk to desk until she reaches him.
Mm-hmm.
She tells Gary there's a Fort Worth detective named Diane Teft that would like to talk to a detective. And Gary said, patch her through, assuming that she needed help finding a witness or something on Garland.
Mm-hmm.
So Diane introduces herself and explains the reason for the call. She received a letter from an inmate from Warren Correctional Facility near Lebanon, Ohio. The inmate was Jeffrey Sunnycab.
What a name.
Jeffrey claimed that he was cellmates with a guy who claimed to have abducted and murdered a 14-year-old girl in Fort Worth named Julie Fuller in 1983. Okay, 14, Fort Worth, 1983.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Diane followed up with a phone call to Jeffrey where he explained that he was David Penton's cellmate for 3 years.
Oh.
They were both housed in segregated section of the prison for sex offenders to keep them safe from other prisoners.
Why do we
And
do
I'm going to tell you right
that?
now, that just infuriated me. Like, absolutely infuriated me. Let's put them in the general population, people, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Let's let nature take its course.
Yes. I just can't. Anyway. Okay. During her call with Jeffrey, he said that David loved to boast about his crimes to anyone that would listen.
What up?
He said he had information on Julie Fuller, Christy Meeks, Christy Proctor, and Roxanne Reyes. Gary's ears immediately perked up because he had remembered reading David Penton's name and his crimes and his crime file in Roxanne's box.
Yeah.
So Diane arranged another call with Jeffrey and asked Gary if he wanted to jump in on the call. Mm-hmm. And Gary was like, heck yeah,
yes,
I do.
I would. Thank you.
And he said, let me clear it with my supervisor. And he said, I hope to be there tomorrow to talk with you and Jeffrey.
Wow. I bet he was, sorry, everybody. I bet he was so excited.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
So Gary sat with his supervisor, Lieutenant Mitch Bate, and brought him up to speed and asked if he could investigate the lead. And Mitch was like, absolutely, you can follow up. And he said, better yet, I'm going with you.
Oh, well, there we go.
So the next day, Gary Sweet and Mitch and another detective named Charles Renee left for Fort Worth. The 3 men agreed that Gary should be the one to talk to Jeffrey as he was the most familiar with the case.
Mm-hmm.
So the day before, when Mitch gave Gary the green light to pursue the lead, Gary pulled Roxanne's file from the murder closet and spent hours going over the details.
Mm-hmm.
Once the detectives arrived in Fort Worth, Detective Diane Teft led the men to her office while they waited for Jeffrey's call. Soon after they settled in, her phone rang with a collect call from Ohio State Prison. Diane quickly asked her follow-up questions about Julie Fuller and then let Gary Sweet take over. Calls from prison were only about 10 minutes long, so they had to be quick. So Gary wasted no time jumping in.
He was like, da-da-da-da-da-da, firing them all.
Right. His goal was to see if Jeffrey Sunnycab was a credible informant or if he was repeating what he had seen or heard on the news from years before.
Yeah.
So Gary jumped in. He said, all right, tell me the details that could only have come from the killer himself. Mm-hmm. So Jeffrey starts off by telling Gary that David Penton said he abducted Roxanne from a field behind an apartment complex in Garland. fair enough, Gary thought, but those details were released on the news.
Yeah.
So while it was a good detail, it wasn't a credible one.
Right.
Not enough for them to, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Trigger warning.
Oh, God.
Jeffrey continued to tell the detectives that David boasted often that he kept Roxanne in his van for 3 days, continuing to assault her at will until he strangled her to death and dumped her body over a fence in a wooded area in Murphy, Texas.
I'm going to vomit.
Yep. Gary's interest was really piqued now because her cause of death was assumed to be strangulation.
Yeah.
However, Roxanne's body wasn't found until a year after she had been abducted, so there was not much physical evidence to go on. Though at the time, they noted that there were no gun or knife wounds and no trauma to her head. Gary's final question before the call was cut off, he asked Jeffrey what Roxanne was wearing that day. And without hesitation, Jeffrey said a purple top and pink shorts. So now Gary's heart is racing because that was a detail that was not released to the public.
Wow.
Jeffrey continued that he also had information on Christy Meeks and Christy Proctor and another girl from Van Zant County.
What?
But unfortunately, Jeffrey couldn't recall her name.
Shut up.
Gary gave Jeffrey his number and asked him to call him the next day. And then 10 seconds later, the call was disconnected. Gary turned to face the other detectives and relayed his excitement that he felt Jeffrey Sunnycab may actually be a credible source.
Mm-hmm.
Gary wasn't letting himself get too excited, though, because Jeffrey still had a long way to go to prove his credibility. Okay. Trigger warning again.
Oh, my God.
I know. I wanted to tell you who Sunnycab is. To Jeffrey Sunnycab is. Okay. Because let's not forget, he's a cellmate
in there
with
for
a
a
pedophile,
reason.
right, for
Yeah.
3 years. So let's talk about who Jeffrey is.
Okay.
I don't know the exact dates, but I believe this happened probably in the mid-90s from what I can figure out. So Jeffrey, who was 32 at the time, was given an 11-year-old girl by her parents in exchange for cigarettes and beer.
I'm sorry. Restate what you just said.
Jeffrey, 32 at the time, was given an 11-year-old girl by her parents in exchange for beer and cigarettes. These monsters allowed their daughter to move in with Jeffrey as long as he kept them in beer and cigarettes.
Where was this at?
Ohio. Oh, you're going to be even so much more upset. Let me finish this about Jeffrey.
I think I have to plug my laptop in. Hold on, everyone.
Oh yeah, no, it's yeah. I thought I saw something change, and I thought maybe it was a flash of like one of your emails or something come across the screen.
Sorry.
Honestly, it really is probably just the Lord working for you.
Yes, another moment for all of us to take a breath.
Yeah. There we go. We're bright again.
Okay. Okay, everybody. So sorry about that. I think the Lord is giving us little breaks every once in a while.
Yeah,
so take a breath.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeffrey brought this little girl home and
I'm gonna vomit.
told her she was his wife now and explained that she was to perform marital relations with him. And then he proceeded to print off a fake marriage certificate from the computer. He had her in his possession for several months before he was caught.
I am unwell.
Okay, get this. He was convicted of sexual assault on a minor and served a very short time in prison before being released. Hold on. Upon his release, he found the little girl again and again was allowed to take her home.
Shut up.
Yeah. Was just given to her again.
Why aren't we arresting the parents of this 11-year-old?
How did they get her back?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What?
I did try looking into this case to see if I could get some more details.
Yeah.
But I really
wasn't.
I couldn't find much because it was something in the 90s. And I did find a couple of articles, but Like the one I found was the detective that worked this case that she was retiring, and it was like a news article about her, like the most memorable case, and this was it for her
I'm
in
sure.
her career. So anyway,
good God.
yes.
Oh, I hope that girl's okay today.
When he caught her the second time, when he was with her the second time and he got caught, he was sentenced to 20 years. Okay. But don't worry, he didn't get out. He died in prison in 2017. So he was never released, and he can't hurt anyone anymore. So,
and this is the guy that is telling
this is the informant.
Yeah,
this is the informant.
Wonderful.
So, and I have a feeling like it's just kind of like your case with Michael Blair, was that he's like, oh, and like I sexually assaulted people, but I did not cross the line of murder, right?
Yeah.
Which I feel like this is where this guy's coming from. He's like, oh yeah, I took an 11-year-old bride, but
oh my God,
I didn't kill her. So anyway, yeah, I just don't understand how we just release these people back into society. And it reminded me too, when I was writing this, remember Charles Albright?
Yes.
Okay, when he assaulted the little girl from his church, that was the eyeball killer, just for you guys, just a reminder. He served no jail time after he assaulted her, and he was just sentenced to go to therapy.
Yeah It blows my mind. I feel like you can't rehabilitate a child predator.
No,
you can't.
I address that. I go on a little rant here in a minute.
Okay, good. Because I'll stand 10 toes down on that one too. So,
okay. So back to our investigation. That's Jeffrey for everybody.
Thank you.
Yes. Now you're going to keep that in mind, because he is very helpful, but keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So Detective Diane Teft put together a big meeting of the minds with detectives from around the area. They brought in their unsolved cases to talk about and compare notes. Gary noticed that his friend Mike Bradshaw from the Mesquite station was at the meeting. Mike was there to present on Christy Meeks. Then Gary noticed that no one from Plano Police Department was there to represent Christy Proctor. Gary thought, well, maybe they know something that I don't.
Yeah.
So when it was Gary's turn, he gave a quick update on Roxanne Reyes and the recent information he'd been given by Jeffrey Sunnycab. When it was Diane Teft's turn, she announced that they would be doing a DNA test pulled from Julie Fuller's body to that of David Penton to see if it was a match. If the DNA was a match, it would bring more credibility to Jeffrey's claims. After the meeting, Mike Bradshaw approached Gary and told him to be careful with Jeffrey. Mike had spoken to Jeffrey about Mike had also spoken to Jeffrey, but stopped taking his calls when he found out that Jeffrey had requested an open records request on the Texas cases. So he would requested the records for them. So Jeffrey had all the information to provide to detectives.
Oh, hell.
Yes. Mike also said during phone calls with Jeffrey that when he was asked certain questions, Jeffrey would clam up, change the subject, or take a long time to answer, as if he was having to think about it. Gary appreciated what Mike had to say. Mike was a well-seasoned detective, and Gary had a lot of respect for him. But something told Gary not to shut Jeffrey down just yet. Then 5 days after the meeting, Detective Diane Teft called Gary to tell him the bad news. David Penton's DNA was not a match for the DNA found on Julie Fuller, thus confirming for Diane that Jeffrey was not a credible source.
Ooh, okay.
Still, Gary was not giving up. And I want to point out that they were trying to connect Julie's case to this, but she was 14. So she didn't really fit the victim
I know,
profile.
right when you said she was 14, I was like, man, that seems a lot older than the other victims.
Yeah. And the oldest little girl so far that we're trying to connect to Penton was 11.
Yeah.
So Gary had set up a call with Jeffrey, and while on the call, Gary just asked. He's like, "What?" He's like, "Tell me about Julie Fuller. What you said he was one of David Penton's victims." And Jeffrey quickly responded saying, "That is not what he said. He said, did you read the letter I sent to Diane?" And he said, I didn't say David was responsible for Julie's murder. I suggested they should look into it because of the crime itself, the area in which it happened, and the timing of it. So once the call was over, Gary called Diane and asked her to fax him a copy of the letter. And sure enough, Jeffrey said they should look into Julie Fuller, that she could be another one of Penton's victims.
Oh, okay.
So on another call, Gary asked Jeffrey how him and David even started talking about David's crimes. And Jeffrey said they were watching Oprah Winfrey at the time.
What in the world?
And her show happened to be about Christy Proctor.
Oh.
David got really excited about the show, like he was reliving the crime, and then started boasting that she was one of his victims. And then the floodgates opened about all the little girls he had abducted, raped, and murdered.
Shut up.
Jeffrey went on to say that David claimed to have 50 victims.
Oh my God.
Some in South Korea when he was stationed there in the army, and then across the U.S. Jeffrey, however, didn't believe that David had that many victims. Based on the details he shared with him, he thought David's victims were closer to 25.
Oh, just 25.
Either way, if this was true, David would be the most prolific serial child killer in the U.S. Jeffrey went on to say that David said he liked dark-skinned girls, so Black, Asian, or Hispanic, and that he targeted low-income areas because, and I quote, nobody gave a shit about those kids. They were throwaway kids.
I'm sorry. Every kid we've talked about so far did not seem like that at all.
Yeah. What child is a throwaway child?
Yeah.
Jeffrey continued on that the reason he didn't believe David had 50 victims is that details only didn't remain consistent. So he was only consistent with
a certain few.
Like Christy Meeks, Christy Proctor, and Roxanne Reyes. Other than that, these details kept changing. Jeffrey continued that not only did David love to boast and relive his crimes with whoever would sit down long enough, he would often talk about how smart he was to never be caught. That he targeted these throwaway kids and would even plan what he was going to do with them while in his possession and where he planned to dump their bodies once he was through with the girls. David would further tell Jeffrey the only reason he got caught was because he made a mistake with Nidra Ross because he knew her uncle and had been seen with her. At that point, Gary is realizing that David's need to boast is about his abductions is going to be his downfall. Jeffrey continued on that David would constantly make comments if a little girl came across the TV screen and would say, and I quote, "She better be glad I'm in here or I'd have her." Gross.
My
this
God.
guy is just an absolute monster. As he sat in prison, he would tell other inmates that he couldn't wait to get out of prison so that he could resume his activities. He even planned to change his tactics. Currently, as we know with Roxanne Reyes, he punched his victims in the stomach to knock the air out of them so they lacked the ability to scream. Then he would throw them in his vehicle and take off. His new plan was to continue to stalk his victims as he previously had, but he was going to get an electric stun gun to disable them and then throw them into his vehicle.
I need for somebody to take him out, please.
At this point, Gary contacted Ohio State and found out that David was eligible for parole in 2027, which would make him about 69 upon his release. Still, David had the potential to get out early or even sent to a less secure facility where he could escape and carry out his awful plan. So remember, this is the year 2000. So all this is coming from Jeffrey, and with every detail that checks out, Gary opens the door of trust a little more. Gary's goal was to convict David of the murders in Texas and for that monster to receive the death penalty.
Yeah.
Still, Gary kept Jeffrey at arm's length because he too is in prison for awful things. And Gary finally asked Jeffrey about his conversations with Mike Bradshaw, the Mesquite detective over the Christy Meeks case. So, just a reminder, Mike's complaint was that he would linger on a question, he would change the subject or trail off or not answer the question at all.
Mm-hmm.
So Gary's like, what was going on there?
Yeah.
And Jeffrey's like, I can explain this. He said, the phones aren't private. And if another inmate found out I was snitching, I could be beaten or even killed. He said, sometimes Mike asked me direct questions I just couldn't answer without giving myself away that I was talking to a cop.
Mm-hmm.
So this made perfect sense to Gary. And I could just see the inmates like in a line waiting to get to the phone, right?
Yeah.
So Gary's finding Jeffrey as a very reliable source. So why did so many find him so untrustworthy? He was thinking. So Detective Keith Grisham with the Plano Police Department had stated that Jeffrey was a liar and could not be trusted. Now remember, there was only one detective that didn't show up during the big meeting, and it was David Grisham with Plano.
Okay.
So Gary called up Keith and asked if they could talk about Jeffrey and the unsolved case of Christy Proctor.
Mm-hmm.
Keith was nearing retirement and had no problem filling Gary in.
Yeah.
Keith said he received a letter from Jeffrey, same as Diane Tefton in the Fort Worth area. And Jeffrey claimed to have information about the 3 missing girls in Texas. Keith and a detective, Billy Meeks, no relation to Christy Meeks, made arrangements for Jeffrey to be transported to a county facility so they could interview him without risking Jeffrey as being labeled a snitch.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 detectives flew to Ohio and sat in a county jail where Jeffrey refused to give detectives any information.
Really?
Keith said the trip was a complete waste of time and Jeffrey Sonny Cab was a liar. Despite Keith's feelings toward Jeffrey, he gave Gary all the information he had about Christy Proctor. He even drove Gary out to the dirt road near Plano where Christy's body had been found, and then he drove him to the area where Roxanne's body had been found. Both places were in different cities, but within Collin County. With this new information about Keith and Jeffrey's interaction, Gary planned to get Jeffrey's side of the story. So during one of their next phone calls, Gary just asked, so tell me what happened between detectives Keith and Billy.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeffrey did not deny he did not cooperate. He fully admitted that he didn't and that he went on to explain why. He said, I agreed to meet with Keith and Billy under 2 conditions: that our interaction was not to be recorded and that no notes could be taken. Jeffrey didn't want anything to come back on him, and the 2 detectives agreed and set the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So when they showed up and they're getting everything like settled in, everything started off great. Then Keith and Billy said that they needed to take a smoke break before they jumped into the interrogation. So Jeffrey said what the detectives didn't know was that he was an electrician by trade. So as he sat in the interrogation room, he saw wires coming from a speaker box. Jeffrey got up to investigate and saw that he was being video recorded.
Oh, no.
The camera had been hidden in the speaker. At that point, he knew the detectives could not be trusted. So that when they returned to start questioning Jeffrey, he wouldn't tell them anything.
Oh, man.
He also didn't tell them that he had discovered their video camera. So he just waited it out until the detectives became frustrated and left. Gary again was like, okay, plausible.
Yeah.
So after the call with Jeffrey, Gary called Keith and asked if there was video recording of his interview with Jeffrey back in the day. And Keith said, yep, I've got the video and I'll send it over to you.
Oh my gosh.
So he was right.
Yeah.
So all these things are checking out.
He's a monster, but he's being truthful right now.
He's at least trying to help solve these cases, right? So, and the video was exactly as Jeffrey had told him. And again, adding to Jeffrey's credibility and as a reliable informant. Following the phone call, Gary drove to the station and pulled Roxanne's box from the murder closet and carried it home. He was determined to sort out the chaos that was her file and make sense up from it from what he had learned over the years. Even Gary's wife sat down with him on the living room floor and tried to help sort the material, but eventually had to excuse herself over the brutality of the case.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
There were several pictures of the Reyes family in the box, and one that stuck out to Gary was Sergio Reyes leaning over with lips puckered to give his little girl a big kiss. Then this picture, coupled with the sound of Tammy Reyes' voice, would keep Gary going. Gary separated the material into organized piles and then began to make a scrapbook of the case. The scrapbook wasn't to log the most gruesome details. It was a reminder of why he was working so hard to solve it.
Yeah.
To keep the families and justice for Roxanne at the forefront of his investigation. Because I can't imagine as a father of two little girls like going through this and
No.
I can't. I don't know. Bless the hearts of the guys that and the men and women that do this every day.
Yes,
I don't know how they do it. As Gary sorted through the information, he came across a statement from an eyewitness, Wanda Higgins. Miss Wanda was the tenant in the apartment complex that the killer nearly ran over the day he was chasing Julia Diaz.
Oh.
She could possibly identify the attacker, but she was never questioned after the initial investigation.
Shut up. Oh my God. I feel like I've said shut up 1,000 times.
I know. After all that, Gary researched, and after everything that Jeffrey had told him about David Penton, and as David appeared on the suspect list for all three girls, by the way,
yeah,
Gary was about to do a deep dive into who David Elliott Penton was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And don't worry, nothing about David's childhood is going to make you feel bad for him.
Okay.
David was born February 9th, 1958. He was raised in Columbus, Ohio. His father, shortly before his little sister was born, abandoned his family, leaving David, his mother, and unborn sister Amanda. After dropping out of high school, by 1977, David is now 19, and he joined the Army and was stationed in Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas, and soon married a girl named Catherine, who happened to be the daughter of David's stepfather. So he married his stepsister.
What the
He married his
hell
stepsister.
is going on? Okay.
The marriage didn't last long, and by 1979, the two were divorced, and it was known at the time that they owned a brown Plymouth Fury, a two-door sedan, and a white van with brown stripes. So remember, Tiffany Abira was picked up in a white van.
Oh, yeah.
By 1980, David remarried a woman from Korea named Kyung, and I hope I'm saying that right, and months later was sent to Korea. In 1983, David returned to Texas with Kyung and their baby girl. A year after their return, the couple had a second child, the son named Michael. By 1984, David was arrested for shaking his son Michael to death. In 1985, David pled guilty to manslaughter but appealed for a delay in his sentencing and was let out on bond. And while on bond is when he fled for the next 3 years until he was caught for Nidra Ross in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So we know these like cases. We know like we had Christy in 1985, Christy in February of 1986, Roxanne in 87, and then we had Nidra in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
But if he was traveling, I was thinking about this all the time. If he was traveling across the United States, how many more are there?
Oh, yeah.
How many more are there? Because he didn't just like take a break between Texas and Ohio.
No. I mean, and like what's his name said, like he's claiming 50.
Yes, he's claiming 50.
Yeah.
So I just imagine he's just dotted along the way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. So we're going to talk about Nidra Ross for a second because bless this little girl's heart. If it weren't for her and the mistakes that David made, I don't know that he would have ever been caught.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, David worked with Nidra's uncle, and Nidra had been sent to visit her uncle for a while. David would often go to this guy's house after work, and I'm sorry, I could not find the uncle's name at all.
Okay.
And I tried really hard. I could not find it.
And how old is this girl?
I think she's going to be 11, I think. So he would often go to this guy's house to hang out, and this is where he was introduced to Nidra. So once David was locked in on her, he scouted out a remote location where he could dump her body.
Ew.
From there, David returned to the uncle's house the next day, where he forced Nidra into his van, drove off where he would later assault her and eventually strangle her to death. Once she was dead, he drove over county lines to a rural part of Marion County, which is just east of a small town called Waldo, if you're familiar with Ohio. I am not, but and dumped her body in a heavily wooded area near a creek. Nidra's uncle immediately reported her missing, and a search was launched. And David even volunteered to help with the search.
Of course.
But he quickly became a suspect of the investigation because someone had seen David with Nidra. So as police were investigating, they also found a large blood stain in the carpet of David's van that he could not explain away. So again, this is before advanced DNA testing, so there wasn't much they could do to definitively prove that it was Nidra.
Yeah.
Nidra's blood in the van. But 6 months went by before a hunter stumbled upon the remains of Nidra Ross. Investigators took blood and bone marrow samples from Nidra's mother and sent it to the lab in New York, and by January of 1989, the results came back. The remains indeed were Nidra's. By May 1990, David was charged with aggravated murder and kidnapping, and his trial was set to begin in April of 1991. So 3.5 years went by before he would see trial.
Wow.
Yeah. So as we know, David loves to chat about his crimes. So he talked himself up in the prison, and 3 inmates came forward to assist in the trial to get him convicted for Nidra's murder. Yes. And like, as we always say, there is no loyalty in the criminal world.
There's definitely no loyalty.
Okay, this is trigger warning.
Another trigger.
Just this whole episode is a trigger.
Yeah.
Other witnesses included his 2 ex-wives, Catherine and Kyung. So get this.
Oh, God.
Both women testified that he molested his own daughters.
What?
So I started to get really upset by this because why wasn't he turned in then?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if it was that he was scary enough. They were just trying to
slit his throat then.
Yes. I don't know if he was such a monster. They just did everything they could to get away from him as fast as they could. If he threatened to kill them, like, I don't know what the circumstances were, but
yeah,
if these women had come forward, how many little lives could have been saved? You know, it just, and again, I don't know the circumstance, but it's just like, it's awful to think about. Okay. So when it came time for the jury to make a decision, the jury came back with a guilty verdict, and David was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. And I learned while reading this book that in Ohio, while they do have the option of the death penalty, it is extremely rare.
I did know that
anyone ever is sentenced to death in Ohio.
Yeah.
Unlike us, who are like, we put everybody on it.
Death.
So anyway, and I understand, like, and I don't understand why these people are getting out. I know we said this earlier, but like, I understand prison's supposed to be like rehab, quote unquote, but like, you can't fix that.
No,
you can't fix that.
I think I could be wrong, but there's several studies out there now that are proving that to be true. That is not something that is reformed or
you can't fix that.
Yeah, or rehabilitated.
No. Okay. So as Gary's looking into Nidra Ross and comparing his case to the 3 girls in Texas, Gary sees a pattern emerge. And this is a pattern he's saying. Not only is the kidnapping, rape, and strangulation extremely similar in all 4 cases, it's also the killer's behavior afterward. It was driving little girls across jurisdiction lines and dumping the bodies in remote places where they wouldn't be found for months at least. The Nidra Ross case also corroborated Jeffrey Sunnycab's detail that David loved talking about his crimes. After Gary made this connection, he called the detectives in Ohio and found that Rick Sheesby was the original detective on the case, but had since retired. Gary was given Rick's number, and when Rick answered, he was more than happy to talk to Gary about Nidra's case. He told Gary he pegged David Penton as a serial killer immediately. And I quote, "He's good for way more than Nidra Ross."
Yeah.
Rick told Gary to pull a transcript from a conversation that was had with David's sister, Amanda, at the time everything happened. So Gary got the transcript, and this is how Amanda described David. She said David was her older brother by 2 years. Their dad left 2 months before Amanda was born. He walked out to go to work and never came home. After that, her grandmother moved in to help her mom out until she passed in 1976. She stated that David was always her mother's favorite. She said that David was thrown from a car in an accident and was in a coma for a while. His recovery was very slow, and their mother often felt weighted about caring for what felt like two babies.
Yeah.
After that, David could do absolutely nothing wrong in his mother's eyes. She went on to say that when he became a teenager, he changed drastically. He was skipping class, he had awful mood swings, he became violent, and started physically abusing Amanda. Later, he dropped out of school, joined the army, and when he got back, Amanda said he was even more violent than ever. She said David used to beat his wife in front of her. In fact, one time when she was 9 months pregnant, it was 110 degrees outside. He made his wife get in the car, drove her off somewhere, kicked her out, and made her walk home.
My God.
And then when she got home, she was locked out. Then Amanda goes on to say that David molested Catherine, his first wife, Catherine's daughter, from her first marriage, and then molested their own infant daughter before moving on to later marrying Keong.
Oh my God.
An infant.
I am not okay.
Eventually, he found his way back to Ohio and was working with Amanda's husband. And her husband and David often carpooled to work together. Amanda's husband said that David would ask him to take routes past schools and parks that were out of the way.
What the freak?
He said that David would often make comments about the kids as they drove past, but he said he didn't think much of it at the time. He just thought it was just David just being weird. Like, he's like, I didn't think he would act on anything. Eventually, Amanda moved her family to Oklahoma because of growing fear about the safety of her own children.
Yeah, I bet.
She then point blank said, and I quote, "I believe David is capable of hurting children. I believe that David did murder those children in Texas." She also went on to say that she hoped detectives would find him guilty and lock him up forever. She also asked them to please keep their conversation private between like her husband and the detectives because she did not want her mother to find out they had spoken to them because the mother refused to help police and she refused to talk to them about David.
Wow.
Because again, he could do no wrong.
Yeah.
After reading the transcripts, Gary tracked Amanda down and she in fact had moved back to Ohio after her brother's conviction. But when he spoke to her, she said she didn't remember being interviewed by a detective.
What?
She then said, "No, I don't believe my brother would harm my children. He visited us several times when we lived in Oklahoma."
What the hell?
After the call, Gary was like, he's like, "What?" Like, nobody just made this transcript up. But he didn't press Amanda, right? This is what she was saying. So the only thing that he could come up with is that now she's back in Ohio, back when like in a close proximity to her mother, and she didn't want to be involved in talking to the police again.
Yeah, maybe.
Right? To keep this relationship up with her mother, she just denied having all this stuff, which is terrible.
That is terrible because I mean you can help other kids.
Yes.
Like you can prevent.
Right. So the only reason she moved back was because her brother was in jail.
Yeah.
That's the only reason she moved back.
Yeah.
So Gary also stumbled upon an assessment created by an FBI profiler who labeled David as a sexual sadist, but stopped short of calling him a serial killer because he didn't strike often enough, as in monthly. I'm sorry, if you have more than one victim, I don't care how far apart they are, yes, serial killer.
Yeah. Is that the definition? Do we know?
I don't know. You know what? I didn't look up the definition of what makes a serial killer.
I'll look it up.
Look it up.
Continue on.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting, though.
Yes. So now Gary's all up to speed on what Ohio had on David. So he decided to switch gears and go back to the eyewitnesses. Julie Diaz was first on his list. So remember, Julia was the little girl picking wildflowers with Roxanne. And I don't think I've given a date in a minute, but it's now like July 2000. Gary used a company called LexisNexis and got a hit for a Julia Diaz still in the Garland area. He drove to the address, but no one answered, so he left his card wedged in the door. You have an answer for us?
I do. I didn't know if we wanted to wait until the end. But yes, an individual who commits the unlawful murder of 2 or more victims in separate events over a period of time is considered a serial killer.
Okay. So yeah,
It says
he'd be a serial killer.
Yeah, it continues to say the murders are not committed in a single continuous incident, which disguises from or distinguishes them from mass murderers like a school shooter. And then they have cooling off periods, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess at the time the profiler was just looking at Nidra's case, so he was only being convicted of that. So I guess from that standpoint, he couldn't have been labeled because we're leading up to the fact that he has more victims, right? But
right.
They didn't know that at the time, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was to the point where he put a card in the door. A few hours later, he received a call from Julia's mother wanting to know why he wanted to talk to her daughter. He explained the reason he wanted to talk to Julia, and after hearing the explanation, she said she'd have Julia reach out. Thankfully, it wasn't long before Julia called Gary, where Gary asked her to come to the station the next day. So the following day, Julia, now 19, and her mother walked into the station. She recounted the day of the event exactly as she had when she was 6 years old. Gary asked Julia that if she thought she could pick the attacker out of a lineup. She hesitated and told the detective that she had done her best to block him out of her mind.
Yeah, I bet.
And in order to not jeopardize the case, Gary was building up by Julia incorrectly IDing another individual besides David. He asked if she would agree to be hypnotized.
Oh, wow.
To try and open her mind back up to see if she could see his face, which I thought was very interesting. I don't think we've had a case where they hypnotize somebody.
I don't think so. But I've heard of it.
Yes. So Julia, while hesitant, agreed and was back at the station within a few days later to be hypnotized by Detective Keith Prince.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Keith started off by asking her about her childhood and what the apartment looked like when she was 6. And then he slowly brought her to the day where she was nearly kidnapped. Immediately, Julia's demeanor changed and she became visibly upset. So Keith carefully eased off and brought her back to a more comfortable memory, and then led her back to the day again. This time, Julia described her and Roxanne picking wildflowers across from the apartments when a man drove up in his gray 4-door car and began talking to them. The man got out of the car and asked if the girls wanted candy. Keith asked her to describe the man starting with his shoes. Julia said the man was wearing black running shoes and a gray jogging suit. Keith asked, "Can you look at her face and tell me what his face looks like?" And Julia's face immediately contorted and she began to sob. Keith then stopped and slowly brought Julia back. And when she was fully awake, wiping tears from her cheeks, she apologized for stopping and that she just couldn't keep going. She just couldn't keep doing it. And that she was willing to try again someday.
Yeah.
And Gary said, "No, you've been incredibly helpful. And if you're up for it, I have another idea." He said, "Would you and your mom be willing to ride over to the apartments where it all happened?" And Julia agreed to revisit the complex to walk Gary through what happened that day. So as they approached, Gary remembered the neighborhood being run down, crime-ridden, and an absolute haven for drug dealers and prostitutes. And the area had only gotten worse. It was so run down now that the buildings were all scheduled to be torn down.
Wow.
Julia gave Gary a play-by-play and showed him how everything went down. Gary thanked Julia and her mother for their time and told Julia that she'd been incredibly helpful to the investigation by confirming details in the reports from 13 years ago. So, a few weeks goes by, and Jeffrey Sunnycab usually called daily, but today, August 2nd, 2000, Jeffrey called with new information. When Gary answered the call, Jeffrey immediately said, "You need to find a girl named Tiffany Abira." "Why?" Gary asked. He said, "Because David kidnapped her and then let her go."
From the beginning.
He told Tiffany that her father had hired him to scare her about the dangers of strangers. Jeffrey then turned and asked David, "Why didn't you kill her?" And David replied, "She was too damn cute to kill."
Ew.
And that is the end of part 1 of David and Elliott Penton.
What? Good God. She was too damn cute to kill.
Is that not
Sick?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This guy is an absolute monster.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, this has been bad, but there's more details coming. And like, it's just, it was, again, I really struggled presenting this one. But, you know.
But it's so important to know this stuff. I think, especially today, because
our monsters have only gotten worse.
Yeah.
They haven't gotten better.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And there are literally people out there looking for kids, for your children.
And in the next episode, we're going to go through some characters that you're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
With who?
And,
you know, it just makes it like, difficult to let your children go anywhere. Paranoia and fear.
Yes.
Not to do that. I don't want you to box your children in to cage them in until they're adults, but
it's very hard. You just have to be aware. You just have to be very aware of this stuff.
And you have to trust like companies who are hiring people, who are hiring referees, and they're doing their background checks and they're doing their due diligence to make sure that we have safe people in place over our children.
Absolutely. Background checks. Yeah. I perform background checks a lot with my work. And it's funny because people that apply think that we're, you know, they'll be in an interview and, you know, can you pass a background check? Yeah, sure. You run a background check. No, you can't. You got 3 felonies, sir. Did you not think I was really going to do this? So, yeah.
Maybe they do. Maybe they think you ask it as a standard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We've been told that before. Some companies don't do it. So I just take my chances.
Oh my gosh. I take my chances.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
Wow, Ashley. That's insane.
I know. I'm sorry. We have a whole nother episode coming.
Great.
Yeah. And I'm really going to try. Bear with me because it's probably going to be long.
Yeah.
But I'm going to
try
do my
and
best.
Shove it all in there.
I'm going to try to do my best to not make this 3 parts. And we're going to cram it all into one and get past this asshole and just be done. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I'll fill you in a little more about the Van Zant girl because I know I didn't mention.
That's when you said Van. When you said Van Zant County, that took my breath away.
Yeah, that's how I stumbled across him. Actually, was that about this Van Zant County case. So, I'm not going to spoiler alert anything. But that's what got me onto him. And then I ordered the book and then I read it and I almost immediately regretted it.
Yeah.
And I spared you so many details. You have no idea.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I did give you some awful ones to choke down, but anyway. Okay. Well, like, subscribe, and share.
If you have a case or a recommendation or a tale of your own, email us at inlawsandcrime@gmail.com and rate and review. Thank you for continuing to do that. That helps us out so much. And we love reading y'all's comments and all that fun stuff. And I know we said we were going to get better about posting on social media, little snippets of our life.
I posted my chickens one time.
You did. I'm proud of you.
I have had pictures of Apache loaded up for people that don't watch us on YouTube that don't get to see his little face pop in every now and then. I do have pictures of him that I was going to post and then I completely forgot.
He's been over here in Dream World.
He's snoozing away.
I can hear him over there chasing rabbits in his sleep.
He is.
But anyways, yeah, thank y'all. And we'll try and get better about posting stuff like that. So we'll see. And keep your roots deep.
And your head on a swivel.
Goodbye.
Bye.